L'honorable député de Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, nearly half of all Canadians with a mortgage say that they're having a tough time paying it. The Prime Minister told us interest rates would stay low forever, but his reckless spending and higher taxes have caused rates to skyrocket faster than ever. Now struggling families are paying the price. Young people can't even imagine getting in. There is a mortgage crisis on the horizon until this Prime Minister reins it in. When will he stop the inflationary deficits and balance the budget so that Canadians can keep their homes?
L'honorable ministre du Logement.
Mr. Speaker, when I hear the Conservatives make arguments that we should be spending less in the context of housing, I would point out to them that it takes investments to build the housing necessary to put a roof over the same Canadians' heads that she seems concerned about. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, we're cutting the tax on new apartment construction in this country. They want to put it back on. We are moving forward with a plan to fund cities so they build more homes. They plan to cut it. When we put measures on the floor of the House of Commons to support some of society's most vulnerable, they vote against it. Every step of the way they try to block progress for people. We're going to advance it at all costs.
L'honorable député de Thornhill.
That's false, Mr. Speaker. They act like everything's okay. They haven't built a single home with their accelerator fund. But the number of people who are paying their mortgage, the number of people who say that they're paying their mortgage is very difficult, has doubled in 6 months. And as mortgage payments and anxiety go up, Canadians cut back on essentials like food and home heating. Mr. Speaker, you shouldn't have to choose between heating your home and putting food on the table. But that's the reality after 8 years of this Prime Minister. Canadians are realizing that he's not worth the cost. Will this minister finally realize that too?
L'honorable ministre du Logement.
Mr. Speaker, part of the reasons it's difficult to find affordable housing in this country is because for 30 years, federal governments in Canada failed to make the investments necessary, including the previous Conservative government. When they were last in power, Mr. Speaker, this country lost 800,000 homes that were on the market at affordable prices. We're going to continue to make the investments necessary to get more homes built. I would ask the honourable member in response to her question why she wants to raise taxes on home building and cut funding for home builders. Mr. Speaker, we need to make the investments necessary to build homes in this country, and that is exactly what we're going to do.
Once again, I'll ask all members, even those who are not sitting in their normal seats, to please listen to the response, and when they have the floor, they'll be able to ask the questions. The honourable member from Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, spending is out of control and inflationary deficit are pushing up mortgage costs. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says the deficit this year will increase to over $46 billion. And everyone now agrees that spending is driving interest rates. Right. Every month, 70,000 households are renewing their mortgage, and they're realizing that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost. So will they rein in inflationary deficits, put forth a plan to balance the budget so Canadians can keep their homes?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Mr. Speaker, I can speak to the fact that Canada has created over 1 million more jobs compared to pre-pandemic levels, has the lowest debt to GDP ratio and the lowest deficit in the G7, lower inflation than our comparative partners around the world, and the IMF and OECD project the strongest growth in 2024. We know that Canadians are struggling right now, but the real difference between us and the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, is that our government will not abandon people in need, like the Conservative leader has made abundantly clear time and time again.
L'honorable député de Simcoe Nord.
Mr. Speaker, maybe the government hasn't got the memo. Nobody cares about meaningless G7 comparative statistics. After 8 years of prolific spending, the bills are finally coming due. The government borrowing is driving interest rates. This year, the government has to borrow $421 billion. Next year, the government has to borrow over $350 billion. That pushes up mortgage costs for everybody. So once again, will they acknowledge that they need to rein in their spending, produce a plan to balance the budget so that Canadians can keep their homes?
Den har ministre.
Mr. Speaker, I will share with you what Canadians and Albertans care about, and that is the Canada Pension Plan. And Mr. Speaker, after 3 weeks of silence on behalf of the Conservative leader, finally a comment on Danielle Smith's idea to take Albertans out of the CPP, a weak, timid response at that. And guess what, Mr. Speaker? 30 MPs from Alberta, Conservatives, every one of them, silent on the issue. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because they talk a big game in this House, but when it comes to defending Albertans and Canadians, they're silent. We're on the task. We're going to defend Albertans and the CPP.